You're listening to episode 90, Jenny's story, Head-Conjoined twins and adoption. Hello, my friends. I'm so happy you're here today. I have been dying to get you this interview for months now, so I am so honored to finally be sharing it with you and screaming from the rooftops. So I'm going to be introducing you to Jenny Hull today. She is single mom to Josie, who just turned 20 years old this year. Jenny also happens to be the CEO and founder of a nonprofit organization you've probably heard of called Once Upon a Room. And if you haven't heard of it, go follow them. They're just amazing, and they are changing the game for kiddos in hospitals. And we'll get to that at the end of our conversation. Jenny is one of the most comforting and compassionate people I've ever had the pleasure of talking with. And her family story is unlike any other. From head-conjoined twins being given less than a 1% chance of survival to adoption and then starting a nonprofit with the help of two incredible teenagers. I can't wait to share this story with you. So let's get started.
Well, I am Jenny Hull, and I am the proud adoptive mother of Josie Hull, who was a head-conjoined twin that came from Guatemala, actually 19 years ago. They were born 20 years ago, this July 25th. And she and her sister came to UCLA Medical Center, where at the time I had no medical knowledge of anything, not even one class in medical. And the organization I was with brought these two adorable babies that were head conjoined. And UCLA was willing to take on a major surgery that has not very many times been successfully done. So it was a whole new adventure in our world. At the time, I was 31, living in Manhattan Beach. I was single, having a great time. I've had an incredible life. Thank goodness. I have probably one of the greatest families I could ever ask for. I always say that I hit the lottery when it comes to families. And big supportive family. I'm the oldest of four kids, but we have a ton of cousins and aunts and uncles, and we're all super close. So I grew up in California and went off to Arizona State for school, which I loved. I was in a sorority there. I did the whole college thing. I had great jobs afterwards. And then one of my bosses that I was working for at the time was with an organization named Healing the Children. And they would bring kids here from all over the world that needed major medical surgeries, not little. We did a lot of aneurysms, tons of heart surgeries, really big surgeries. So Josie and Teresa were obviously the biggest case that had ever come. And I was really very hands-on with the girls. When they came, I would spend 2 nights a week just helping babysit in the hospital, so their mom could have a little bit of a break. It was obviously a big shell shock to go from the middle of Guatemala in a small village to the middle of Los Angeles. And so I would spend usually Tuesday and Thursday, go visit the girls and stay with them. And then I would stay every Friday to Sunday night in the hospital with them. So I'd spend the weekend with them, and I got to really know them. So they underwent this huge surgery, 23 hours, on August 5th of 2002 to separate them. And luckily, by the grace of God, they survived. So I always say there was one journey to get them to separation and the second journey to get them, to live and thrive. So they did well. They stayed in the hospital until January. They went home for 4 months to Guatemala, and unfortunately they failed miserably, and to nobody's fault, but the care they really needed was back in the States, and Guatemala tried their hardest, and they did a great job under the circumstances, but the girls really needed medical assistance here. So on emergency, we flew them home, back up to Los Angeles, and Teresa had contracted meningitis down in Guatemala, and it was eating at her brain. In fact, on the flight, she was kind of in and out of coma. And Josie, right before we were getting on the plane the day before, she had a 105 fever and a 45-minute grand mal seizure, which she had never had before. She wasn't seizure prone then or after, until 3 years after. But anyway, so we brought both girls, and they put them both back in the hospital, and Josie ended up, after 2 weeks of IV antibiotics just to make sure she didn't have meningitis as well, or the start of it, was released. And so they said, well, you're so close to her. Would you just watch her for 2 weeks?
Mm.
And so, of course, that was so much fun. The first thing I did is I went to Pottery Barn Kids and I got cute sheets of what do you do when you
Yes, yes.
have a child, right? So, with 0 instructions on what to do with them. So she came home and we had a ball. And, thank goodness the family I was working for at the time were super supportive and wrapped very much up into this story as well. So she, could be part of coming to work with me, and they were they're most involved in her life. So fast forward about a month and a half, when we were thinking that maybe she was well enough to return home, she had hydrocephalus come into play, which had never been there, and her head leaked, and she had emergency shunt surgery, and they paralyzed her, and they don't know how or why. So there started a new journey, and we knew at that point that they probably wouldn't return for at least a few years, and her sister was still in the hospital. So I had the great pleasure of keeping Josie, and then finally, after a few years, her parents would come back and forth. They realized that the girls could never leave the States. They really needed the medical treatment that we could offer here. That there was not medical treatment down there that could help keep them alive. So we started our journey there, and we've done it all. We immediately signed up for Mommy and Me, because that's what you do when you're 2 years old. And we went to preschool, and I was just determined to give Josie the most normal life and provide her with everything to make her thrive to the best of her ability. And sometimes ignorance is so bliss because you don't actually know. And so you just make your way. And our motto the whole time through this has been, don't tell us no, tell us how. And I think that's really what has kept us going, because there's a lot of obstacles in the medical world, and you have to be a fierce advocate and keep going through it until you find what works best for you. And there's no one size fits all. So in this journey, we have had the pleasure of meeting the most amazing people, and I think that's helped us stay positive and keep us going through this journey
Oh,
that
yeah.
we're
Well,
very far
that's
into
just
now.
amazing. I have to say, the most incredible intro story that we've ever had on the podcast and I've ever been able to listen to. So I think it's just so beautiful that Josie ended up with her biological mom and her adopted mom in 2 countries that love her and want to be there for her. That's pretty amazing.
Amazing. I mean, it's truly, when you watch the love that it comes from. I think we're also one of the best. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back, but one of the most successful adoption stories. And I think it's because
Right.
it's built with so much love and respect. And her biological parents are the true heroes in this. And I say it every time. I mean, I don't know if I could be as brave as they were to really look at the situation and
Right.
allow their daughters to stay in a different country, even though they could come visit. I mean, to let your children go because you knew that was the only way to keep them alive, and the respect we have for each other, and great friendship. I mean, we do have great extended family. We're super supportive of each other. So I feel like
Oh,
we've been super blessed in that nature,
oh
because
gosh,
that doesn't always
I can literally feel
happen.
the love as you're telling this story. So I think that's so amazing, and it's not a story; it's actually your life. Um, it is, it is.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I would love to hear what happened to Teresa. How is she?
She's good. Okay, so she ended up in and out of a coma for the time when they came back. She was the sickest child that UCLA has seen that actually lived. Nobody thought she was going to live. The woman that was in charge of the organization, who is literally a saint and an angel on earth, Chris Embleton, she called herself Grandma Chris, and at the time, I think Chris was in her 60s or whatever. She would spend every single day at UCLA with that baby, and so she finally said, the doctor's like, we don't know what else to do. Like, she's not necessarily getting better, she's not getting worse. We don't know what we should do. And Chris says she needs to go home. She's depressed. And they all looked at her like she was crazy. They're like, depressed? Are you kidding me?
Right.
We've been trying to keep her alive for like how many months? And she's depressed. We need to get out of here. She needs to go home and live life. And if that means life is short, so be it. But she needs to get out of here. She's not going to get any better. And they were like, all right, go ahead, take her home. They thought she was nuts. So Chris is maybe the funniest person too. And she takes her home. She's rocking her the first night they're home. She stands up and she yanks the feeding tube out of her stomach, and there's milk flying everywhere. And she says, all I could do is laugh because now we had to go back to the hospital and go get that darn feeding tube put back in. But Teresa, the second she walked out of the hospital, she says, I felt the weight
Oh.
of the world come off her shoulders. And she goes, I knew I did the right thing. And Teresa is going to turn 20 and she's nonverbal. She can't walk. She's on a feeding tube. But I'm telling you, that child is an angel. And she sits here on earth to teach us a lesson. And she's funny, like all kid with her. And she'll actually giggle at me and look at me. And we used to do a ton of media because the media surrounding this was just huge. I mean, they wouldn't leave them alone. And I could see why. It's a really inspiring story. But the media would show up and she would literally put herself
Oh.
to sleep for 4 days. Like we'd have National Geographic in the house for 4 days and Teresa would not open her eyes. And then I would look at her, we'd close the door and I'd look at her, I'm like, you little bugger, you knew, you purposely did that. And she would get a smirk on her face and open her eyes like she's wide awake. And I was like,
Smart
you are so
girl.
in there. She's so trapped, but she and her sister have an amazing connection. I mean, twin connection like no other. They say there's twin connections in space. For sure have it. So it's pretty remarkable to see. They can't speak to each other, or Josie can talk to Teresa, but Teresa's not back. And when they were little, Josie would answer, like, Teresa needs this, or Teresa feels this.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my
Oh
gosh, how do we even
gosh.
question how, right? So we went with it. And they did. They knew what each other wanted. And it was almost like Teresa sacrificed herself for
Oh
Josie's
my goodness.
well-being. So,
Yeah.
especially in separation.
How did
Yeah,
you, over
it's
the
amazing.
years, talk to Josie about what was happening and how to handle all of the things that went along with her sister and also herself as she got older and was able to verbalize questions and ask about what happened?
So people ask me this question all the time, and I am going to tell you that there is something divinely inspired by Josie, and I honestly I can't really explain it, but the peace and calmness and serenity this child has and optimism, she's never ever fought life, which, I mean, to me, I was just telling somebody today, I think this was me. I
Mm.
literally probably would never get out of bed. Josie is like the light of the world. And I know people say that, but there's never been a woe is me. There's never been why can't I? Her outlook on life was always how do we make it better for other people? She's never questioned like why did this happen to me? I think it was more of we've always framed this as we are so lucky. We rolled two babies in an operating room in hopes that we'd ever see them again. And out they rolled and life began. And I think we've had that attitude since day one, and it's led by Josie's her tenacity and her ability to function. I mean, when you've got a body that doesn't work, it could lend to depression and all this and all the surgeries. And we've done orthopedics. We had two halos, a spica cast. I mean, you name it. We've lived in therapy centers for her whole entire life, and you would think that that would give a depression. I cannot
Hmm.
tell you how happy this child is. I think also our family is super upbeat. My mom is always like, if it's 8 in the morning, we're not out of bed. She's like, are you sick? Like, let's go. So I think
Yeah.
the frame of mind that has always been in our world, and Josie comes from happiness. Her biological parents are happy. Her surroundings are happy. And you know what has been the greatest gift is the village. Because our outlook was always so positive, it trickled into the medical world and to different people. And then we got into, like I said, we went to Mommy and Me, and then we signed her for preschool, and everyone around her was so positive. And then she went into elementary school and has these very best friends. I mean, Sienna's sitting next to us right now, who was her absolute very best friend that's been with us, every step of the way for years. So I think the journey has been positive and not, there hasn't been questioning, which is shocking, right? I mean, it's kind of unheard of. I don't know. We're in a unique position. So we've always been very open about, hey, this is what happened and this is what could have happened. And I mean, she knows looking at conjoined twins now. I mean, head conjoined
Mm.
twins don't necessarily make it out of surgery. So she sees that. And I think there has to be something bigger than us that keeps her so positive. So it's kind of a funny question to answer because we haven't had
Yeah.
to
I think
kind of
that's
deal with that. So In fact, really quick, I do have a funny story. When we first got her, I thought, I'm going to get to her a therapist because, what if we need help socially switching, switching, coming to America, going through medical. So we find this really great child psychologist about, oh, I don't know, a year after she got here. We went to lunch with her and she got to know her and she finally looks at me. She goes, this child is more well adjusted than anybody with two parents in a normal body. So go home and love her and you're
Oh,
fine. And she was right. She said, just go home and love her. That's what she needs.
oh
And I was
my
like, thank
gosh.
you.
Well,
I
yeah.
struggled with being a single mom a lot. I have really great, my parents are a great marriage, my grandparents. I come from families, that are super well connected. And I've struggled that I was putting her into a single home and can we handle this and what comes with that? And you know what? Sometimes that's what it's supposed to be. I think the gift of the journey has been that it's been the two of us. Um, and it's been easier to make decisions.
Ah,
So sometimes don't
that's
question.
such a good point.
So
Yeah, there's a tough dynamic, but what it sounds like is from because you had been there since the beginning, she's got this trust in you and also the healthcare team that's been a part of her life since the very beginning. And when there's trust and positivity and like as you say, that divine intervention of optimism, like what a beautiful, beautiful family you are.
we're so lucky, and my family is
Mm.
so close to us that that's how we're making it too, and our very close friends, or we wouldn't. I
How
wouldn't. She'd
did you
probably be
keep
fine.
track of all of the medical stuff? You mentioned several surgeries and therapy. What was your system for staying on top of it as a single parent?
So that stuff, for some reason, which is so funny because I was scared to death of the medical world. I mean, when I say scared to death, I wouldn't even get like my measles shot to go to college. I was so scared of needles. So ironically, I always said, God makes you laugh. I said, why am I so short? Well, now it's because I lift Josie and my back doesn't hurt. Why am I scared of medical? I've got the biggest medical challenge, that
Yeah.
our world has seen in years in my care. So I don't know. I kind of just navigated the system by, at first I paid a lot of attention and I really questioned. I asked a lot of questions. When we got her discharge notes from UCLA, literally the discharge notes said, don't take her to petting zoo. And I was like, now looking back, I was like, we should frame that. It's not PT, not OT, not speech therapy, not follow up with the neurologist because what happens, she's on Dilatin, but she doesn't have seizures. I mean, nothing. When I say nothing, and it's not their fault, they just thought we were so versed. I don't think
Oh
they thought
my
they needed
gosh.
anything in there. And so it was really figuring out like what needs to come next. And the first Sunday we were at church. She gets out on a Tuesday. On Sunday, this lady behind us in church after church, she says, "Hey, um, who's your therapist? I'm a therapist, and if you need some help, I'm super happy to help." And I looked at her, I'm like, oh, she's emotionally just fine. She's like, no, physical therapist. And I was like, what are you talking about? I look back now and I'm like, oh, how was I so ignorant? But here's a woman standing there, and I was like, oh, I guess we probably do need physical therapy. Her head is still wrapped in a turban because her head still hasn't healed, right? And I'm like, so she led us on a path, and then she got us to Children's Hospital LA in the orthopedic department, and then it just trickled. And what I really did was take really good notes and make sure that I kept everything in files so I could always go back and say, okay, this is what we talked about. This is what needs to happen next. And I
Mm,
don't think I overcomplicated it. I was like, let's just figure out what we need and where we need it. So I thought we'd end up at Boston Children's for orthopedics, and then found out that the president of pediatric orthopedic surgery, Vern Tolo, happened to be at Children's LA,
mm,
which was 20 minutes from our home. So those kind of things just happen. I just kind of, I was a personal assistant for years, and I think that played well into the fact that I knew I just had to keep looking. Like, what did we need to do? Don't. That's why our motto is "Don't tell me no, tell me how." Like, just figure out what needs to happen next. There's no manual for head-conjoined twins. It's not like you can open the book for CP or for
right.
stroke or whatever. There is nothing, right? So you just have to figure it out, and we did. And I think single was probably easier. My mom was a huge guiding force. I mean, she went to every single appointment with us. 2 sets of ears is better than one. What did you hear? What did I hear? I think having somebody at every appointment, because you don't hear the same things, is incredibly, incredibly helpful. I never ever left her in the hospital, even for a night by herself. If I even had to go take a shower, somebody would show up so they would sit there so that we didn't miss anything. And I think that is the biggest thing I could tell somebody is don't ever walk away. Get your support system and let somebody be there with you and help, because you will miss things and you will miss meds and you will miss question everything when when they shift change comes in, and what are you doing, what's the plan for the night, know what is happening. And that's what people call me all the time of wanting advice, and I said just know the plan and be super aware of your plan. And then you can all work together. And for me, I rely so heavily on my nurses and child life specialists. So they'll round, and like, I want my child life specialist and my nurse standing there and be like, okay, here's our team.
Yeah.
Let's just go through the feedback. And that has been super important to me. I really believe in the nurse being in the
I
room when
agree.
they round.
Oh, I love that.
So,
And that point you made, don't overcomplicate it. I almost want parents to have a sweatshirt on that looks at the doctor that says, don't overcomplicate this. Like, tell me what I need to know so that I can understand it.
yes, shoot it to me
Yeah,
really straight
exactly.
and let's make a
Oh,
decision.
that's great advice. We'll be right back. If you are looking for a way to make a child in your life smile, then you have to go to smilemakers.com and go through all of the must-have toys, stickers, and prizes for kids. You'll find everything you need to make the hospital, waiting room, or even your own living room more fun with games, crafts, and prizes for every occasion. I'm personally so excited for the winter holiday decor and fun prizes. I love a good sensory toy or a squeezy ball that's got a good theme to it. I also have very good news for you, because when you go to smilemakers.com and type in OnCall20, you will get 20% off with no minimum order required. So stock up on bundles made specifically for hospital procedures and therapeutic play, and make these already very affordable items more affordable with OnCall20. That's smilemakers.com and OnCall20 for 20% off your entire order. Well, at the beginning you mentioned, and it makes me laugh, about going to get Pottery Barn sheets as soon as and I did the same thing when I found out I was pregnant, right? It's like, what am I going to put in the room? And I know that the environment of the room has played a huge role in kind of Josie's entire hospital experience and your mission now. So could you talk to us a little bit about how that evolved and how it became Once Upon a Room?
I can. So that's a great question. So we, for years, every time we go in the hospital, we would bring stuff for Josie's room. Just naturally, we'd bring her own bedding and we'd bring stuff to hang on the walls, and we always wanted to make it more cheerful. Maybe more because I have a little bit more attention span issues, and I wanted to always be in somewhere nice and it was comfortable and cozy and it was more like a house, and we'd be there for weeks on end. So we would always bring stuff in, and it always cheered her up. So let's say we came on an emergency and we only had like a blanket. Well, my mom would run by our house and go pick up stuff and bring over all of our stuff that made her room more, hers and personalized. And what we noticed in that too is every time people would come in, anybody who came in, nurses, child life specialists, doctors, whoever came, we're always in teaching hospitals. So there's always a new group, right, that comes around every time. So everybody would engage Josie in what was in her room. Like, oh my gosh, your bunny is so cute. What's your bunny's name? Or, oh, you obviously like pink. So one night we were laying in bed, and it's funny when things happen at such funny times, right? We're kind of in a lull of, okay, we're medically fairly stable right now. We're in a little bit of a lull of needing to be in and out of the hospital. We had time to breathe a bit, and we needed a purpose, which sounds really weird, I know. But then Josie was laying there, and she turns to me, she goes, we need to do something for someone else. I need to help other people. And I said, well, what do you think that is? And she's like, I think we need to help decorate kids' rooms, because it always made me so much happier that we could do that for somebody else. And so I said, well, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't I call Children's LA and let's see if we can, do this at Children's. So we called. No, so the next day she ends up in the emergency room, or 2 days later, I remember. Ironically, because she hadn't been in the emergency room for a little bit. And I was really good friends with a couple people in foundation at Children's, and I called them and I said, "Hey, we're in the emergency room, but I've got this idea. Can you come meet with me?"
I love
We're
it.
our greatest meetings in the emergency room. So these two came in, and I was like, "Hey, listen, this is Josie's idea. We really would like to do this here." And then in their most diplomatic way, kind of told me, "Oh, sure, that's
Yeah.
such a cute idea. We'll get back to you." And meaning, no way this is ever gonna fly. So, and I'm like, no, just who do I talk to? Who do I talk to? They're like, well, it probably have to be infectious disease. And I was like, great, get me a meeting. And they're literally, and now they tell me they literally were walking out the room like almost laughing at me, like this is never gonna happen. But okay, we'll entertain the thought. The infectious disease lady meets with me like a week later. She happened to go to the same high school I did. She lives in my same town, loves the idea, knows how I work, and she's like, let's do it. So everybody's like shocked. Well, we tell her best friend Sienna. We said, listen, well, she knew about the idea, but we said, hey, Children's is entertaining this thought. She goes, well, I just read online there's a Disney grant for kids. So she applies for this Disney grant and literally gets the Disney grant for like $500.
Oh,
And she named it Once Upon a Room. And she called. She's like, okay, so I named the event Once Upon a Room. And
oh,
I was like, that's our name. That's exactly what it's going to be. So here's Josie's idea. Sienna, who at the time was 12 or 13, going on 35, decides to run with this kind of idea, and Children said yes, and we thought we'd do like 50 rooms a year, and it'd be really cute. And we did it like 105 rooms the first year, and then it just exploded. And then we moved on to from there we moved on to UCLA, which was so open. Kelly Carroll at UCLA is just magnificent. And she's like, absolutely, this is the hospital that they're separated in. We would love to have this program. And so we ran with it there. So both campuses there. And then we moved down about a year later to Children's Hospital Orange County, was all in our neighborhood. So we thought, okay, this is cute. We're just going to do, Southern California. And then we get a call from, we moved on to Jacksonville, reached out to us, Texas at Cook's Children's. So we all of a sudden started expanding, in this little cute idea that we thought we'd do 50 rooms a year at Children's LA has really grown. And now we're in Miami at 2 hospitals, and over in Portland, and now we're Minnesota, and then we're expanding into Atlanta in the next couple weeks. So it's grown, and it's the biggest gift to us, because I get more excited now as I did with the first room. I'm like, we've done over 3,000 rooms, and I get so excited every time. I'm like,
oh, I
it never
love
gets
that.
old. So we're thrilled to team up with hospitals, and it changes. So once Upon a Room goes in, and we find out through the child life specialists, which are our heroes. I don't think child life gets enough credit for how invaluable they are in the hospital. I mean, anyways, I think they should have adult specialists. I
Oh,
think child life specialists are so good. So we find out from them, they reach out to us with patients. We don't seek patients out, because child life specialists are the ones on the front line, and they know who's needing what at what time. And so they find out from the family, or it's usually a secret, so not usually from the patient, and then they submit the application, and then within a couple of days we're in decorating outside of COVID. Now we're doing drop-offs until COVID ends, and we'll go in and usually surprise the child or patient unless they can't leave the room. And if they can't leave the room and be surprised, then they get to help kind of, guide us and decorate. We decorate with them, which is also a very special event. But when that wagon comes down that hallway, the staff, to watch them get excited is so special, because, especially in a bone marrow transplant unit or a cancer unit, it's hard. It is hard work. And so to know that there's such happiness walking in, and it's all sitting in that wagon, they can't wait to know who the patient is, and what's the theme for the day, and how many are you doing today? And to watch the staff's excitement first, and then the families. It's so rewarding for us and for our volunteers that sometimes I feel greedy that we're getting more than even they are. But to recognize the child, I think, is the most important for us. Our whole really, our brand is personalization. So in every single room, there's a name sign that goes over the child's bed, and then also a pillow with their name on it. And then usually there's other personalized items too. but we want everybody that walks in that room to know that is
Mm.
Josie's room and she likes unicorns. They don't need to
Yeah.
be room 62 cancer. That's it's more important for the child to be, or the patient to be recognized, not the condition. And I think that's what we've looked at with Josie. She's Josie, who is a former head-conjoined twin, but she's Josie. She's not a head-conjoined twin and then Josie. So we want to recognize the human being and the spirit, not the condition that maybe be afflicting now and forever in some kids' cases. So personalizing everything
Oh,
is
I just,
really important to us, and I think
I'm so
everybody appreciates that.
amazed and
So
literally awestruck about what you guys have created and the fact that they were 12 and 13 and that you believed in them and lifted them up and said, let's do this is an incredible testament to. I've heard this new phrase and I can't stop saying it. It's dreams first, details second. And I just like that's what you do, right? Like you
yeah,
figure it out. You
yeah,
just get it done because it's what you want to do and you've come up with this dream. You like just make it happen and you guys did that. Um and honestly with the part when you were talking about the wagon walking down the hall brings tears to my eyes because that's just not, they can make children's hospitals as lovely and calm and serene or fun as possible, but it's a tough place to be. So whenever something like you and your organization comes along, it just changes everybody's day from environmental services to the physicians and normalizes it. So you guys you've done everything. You've just done amazing. I would like to know what are the
well, we're
requirements
lucky.
for having to apply to have your room decked out?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and we're actually in a
Okay.
really great transitional mode right now. So that's a good timing to ask this question. So, COVID has actually let us take a breath. We were literally doing 40 to 50 rooms a week, just in Southern California on our own here. And so imagine we would do
Wow.
200 rooms a month before COVID hit, and we were just kind of like a hamster on a wheel. We just couldn't stop and we couldn't breathe enough to even organize. Like our Jacksonville team, thank goodness, I've got a bunch of go-getters in our Jacksonville team. And they were like, whoa, hold on a sec. We need a lot of things put in place because we were on autopilot. We've been doing it so long. And they were like, this needs to work. So our Jacksonville team was so great in coming in and putting us,
Mhm.
actually really organizing us and getting everything put together a little more. So in saying that, COVID hits and we all got to take a little bit of a breath, which was a bit of a gift because we thought we're only affecting the children or the patients and teams. I
Yes.
shouldn't say children because we have a lot
Mhm.
of teams, which is super important to hit.
Agreed.
Sometimes more important. Um, anyways, we were able to step back and say, how do we make this bigger? How do we reach more people than just 13 hospitals that we're in? I mean, there's hundreds of children's hospitals. There's millions of patients that deserve, to feel better in their space or even in an infusion center or whatever. So what we are creating right now, and it's almost up and running, will be if you're in one of our 13 hospitals, we'll go through the same mode through our child life specialist as we are right now. If you are not, we're going to have a portal that people can actually buy rooms for other people online and we will ship them. So we will get them out to them. So a lot of times these requests and saying, my so-and-so, my friend's child just got diagnosed with cancer and there's a whole community of us that want to do something, but we don't know what. Can we, sponsor a room or will you send it? And because we kept getting that request, we thought, well, sure, instead of them just piecemealing money together, we can actually create a portal that they can go on and like say that, little Henry's room, he loves sports. And so we'll do a sports room for him and then they can have people
Oh,
sponsor the room and then we'll
beautiful.
send it over to them. So outside of our hospitals that we do, we thought, okay, well, and this will help fund our organization so that we can expand it, help more people, because that's our whole goal. I mean, no, we don't have anybody on salary in our whole group. We've got all these chapters around the country. Nobody takes a paycheck, including me. We've been doing this 8 years in October. So we just, every penny we can get, we try to give, and that's we don't have a big overhead. We work outside of my house, and all our chapters work out of their own homes, so we really can make a huge, significant difference. And so that's why we're excited to launch this new program that people can sponsor rooms to other people and make a huge difference in somebody else's lives. And then also, we're totally willing to talk to other hospitals that want to partner with us, that we can work
Yeah.
with the child life specialist
Oh, that.
in their hospitals. We were trying to go. We were trying to go to the child life
Uh-oh.
conference the last 2 years, and
Yes,
it's been
exactly.
on Zoom.
Oh,
I
yeah, you've gotta go. You'll just
know.
love it. It's always magical, and, child life specialists, we really get excited about organizations and products and foundations and all these things that we just love, so we would love to have you there.
We will be there with bells on. Isn't it in DC next year, I think? So we will be there as long as we can, if we can be in person. So we're excited to be there. But we just praise the child life specialist because it is. I mean, I'm lucky that I've gotten to live both sides. So I think being a hospital mom plays a huge advantage into what we do because I know what goes in and out of rooms. I will never put in a room what I wouldn't want in Josie's room. So don't you dare bring me a bunch of paper and put it on a wall because the
Yeah,
infection
I
rate on
love
that is
that.
so high.
You've got it all figured out.
So,
Eh
stuffed animals, we've figured it out. We've gotten it down. So I think from the child life specialist and the hospital standpoint, they super appreciate that. In fact, I'm more strict with what we bring in and our volunteers than even their policies. So I'm very proud of what we've created. And that, they're like, no, it's okay. I'm like, it's not
Oh,
okay.
well, thank you.
So, we
Oh
only use
gosh, those are so
Jellycat, so
soft. Those are the
those kind of things.
best.
So,
Oh,
well, they wash. So, it's those kind of things that we really pride ourselves on what we put. And we've created our own Once Upon a Room line now. We have our own blanket line and different things. And we work with roommates, wall decals, so they won't pull off the wall. So we really do have a system, and we're so proud of our products that we can
oh, you
supply to
should. You
those
should
families
be.
and patients.
Well, I know people are gonna be wanting to go check out what these rooms look like. Is there anywhere that we can follow along with what you guys are doing, and how can we get in touch with you?
You definitely can. So our website is super easy, onceuponaroom.org. We are also on Instagram. Little caveat to that, though, the girls think that I'm too old and I don't do a good job with it. So it has been taken over by my 19-year-old.
Perfect. Well,
And
they're
they
doing a
run our
great job.
Instagram, and it is just Once Upon a Room. They're doing a great job. I'm not even allowed to touch
Yes.
it, which I'm actually super happy about because I don't have to do it. So that's just Once Upon a Room. We also have a Facebook page, which is, again, Once Upon a Room. We're pretty easy to find. So bear with us if you reach out to us. It could take a day or so for us to get back to you, but we're trying our best to keep up with, whatever our whole goal is to help people. So the best we can do that, we do. We have a small board, but a board that is in love with what we're doing in our mission. So we're grateful, very grateful for that. And if people want to make donations, like I said, almost every single penny goes straight back to the patients because we're lucky enough not to have overhead and office space and salaries. So
No, you're
we're
just
very proud of what we've
amazing, and
created.
I'm also in love with everything that you do and what you stand for and how you've been so steadfast in this mission without giving up. And I'm sure it hasn't all been easy, and you've had to figure out a lot and sacrifice a lot, but it sounds like with Josie and Sienna on your team, you've got it figured out.
Well, quite honestly, there are days that I'm like, oh my gosh, especially towards the beginning, I'm like, my American Express card doesn't think is as cute as I do. That all the money's going on there. So, but I look at them and I think, my gosh, I've got a child that has beat a medical condition that very few people even get to beat. There's a reason she's got to be here. Her yearning to do this and to watch her best friend and what she's created and the excitement between these two, that really is the reason I don't give up. Because trust me, there's days that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. We're up to 1, 2, 3 in the morning before we do big events. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm too old to do this. But to watch them and their enthusiasm, and they created a junior room crew. At 14, they put together a junior room crew that was like 30 kids of their friends to start with. Now it's about 350 strong, and to watch, just to inspire these teens and watch them inspire us back and their motivation.
Oh,
How do you ever quit? So we just keep going, and life gets tough and messy, and
that's
you clean it up
amazing.
and keep
Oh,
going. So uh, we love to watch the teams, and they're so. We didn't even touch on that junior room crew, but the inspiration to give them, I'd give them pretty much full reign. I mean, obviously, I watch what's happening. They run their own board meetings. They put together their own decorating events. In fact, UCLA, I think, rather have our teams come than even our adult volunteers, because they're meticulous, and it's so fun to watch them thrive, because we don't have enough for teenagers to be in charge of. We always tell them what to do, and to give them an opportunity to take charge of this. And they connect with the patients like crazy. I mean, the patients rather have someone their age come in that are fun than, so it has been a real adventure. And I can't say enough about our junior room crew that Sienna and Josie created years back. And it's thriving now. And the girls are, out of high school, and we still have a big following with that. So anything we can do to inspire more kids to give. I always want them to feel good giving, because someday they'll all be successful enough to give somewhere. I don't care where they give. I want them to feel good doing charity work, so they know how to give and they know how it makes them feel. So that's a big goal we have in Once Upon a Room. There's so many facets, we haven't even touched on it, but that's one of our biggest goals, to inspire others
oh yeah.
to help other
I always
people.
say, like, as a child life specialist, I get so much more than I give. And for any kind of volunteer or
Yeah.
organization that you're a part of, like, that's the true value. It's not the paycheck that helps keep the roof over your head is important so you can continue doing it, but actually, like, the connection and the human connection that you get it's worth its weight in gold, and you just can't describe it. And the fact that you're giving that to teens who will grow up to become these people who continue to give is just amazing. I mean, there's no number that could put a testament to how much you guys have done.
Oh, it's my
Mm.
favorite. It's definitely my favorite part. I always say meet teens where they're at, talk with them, not at them, and empower them, and to watch these kids. We have as many boys as we do girls, and we have these boys, like I said, we've got 4 of them playing college baseball right now this year, and they were our team leads. I mean, we've got kids of all walks of life, and it is so inspiring to watch them come together, and they have the same mission and the same goal, and to watch every kind of kid come together and do this. I mean, if the world could just take a look at that, I think we'd have a
Oh,
really
I
happy
agree.
society. So pretty awe-inspiring to watch them,
I love
with a
it.
common mission
Oh,
and
well, thank
goal.
you so
So
much, Jenny, Josie,
yeah,
Sienna. I mean, I'm just so honored to be able to share Once Upon a Room with Child Life on Call listeners. And thank you so much for all that you do. And we're big fans.
well, you're so sweet
Yes.
to do this for us or with us, and we appreciate so much what you're doing, because again,
Oh,
there's not enough praise we can give to child life specialists, and I hope people really start looking and understanding the true value and the true need of what you guys do, because it truly wouldn't function
mm.
very well for families without it. So anything
Oh.
we can do to grow child life,
Well,
we
thank
are
you
the
for
biggest
saying
fans
that.
of
That
child
means a
life.
lot coming from someone like you. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Child Life on Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life on Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.